check if you're able to present now, sir.
Yeah. Can you see my screen, guys?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Thank you. Hey, once again, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great. So just give me 1 minute. I'm just looking out for everyone have joined or not. So do we have everyone in the class? Almost all.
Yes, sir, almost.
Okay, excellent. Then we will begin the session. So can anyone help me out on what did we learn in the last week's class? Anything, 2 points, 3 points that you got to learn from the last week. We spoke about concepts like perimeter security, network security, host security. We also talk about perimeter security concepts like defense in depth, virtual network security, DDoS implementation, and then firewall features, firewall implementation. We spoke about forced tunneling, but we did not implement. UDRs we spoke, but we did not implement. We also spoke about defense in depth strategy, that too in the cloud. We also looked at a chance of what is a Azure firewall and what is the difference between a standard firewall and a premium firewall. We got a look at understanding what is a firewall manager. And when we are going to implement the Azure firewall, typical things that we take care, like, you will do FQDN based application filtering rules, network filtering rules, FQDN based tags, outbound static NAT, inbound destination NAT, L3, L7 connectivity, firewalls, separating the firewall by subnet wise, separate firewall subnet, static public IP addresses, and forced tunneling. But we did not see the concept of forced tunneling because that's a VPN. We also understood what is user-defined routes and how do they communicate. Then we started talking about network security, especially because our focus on the day one was on cyber on network security part. So typically you have something called as network security group. Network security group can work at an interface level like a host-based firewall. Also, network security group can work at a subnet level, can act as a subnet level firewall or subnet level ACL. But network security group has a limitation that it can only work till transport layer. It can only work till transport layer. That means you cannot go ahead and write a fully qualified domain name filters, or you cannot write layer 7 rule with NSG. So NSG can be attached to a subnet or it can be attached to an interface. Yeah. Now, NSG can be used to write security rules either to allow the traffic or to deny the traffic. There are by default inbound and outbound rules which are pre-configured in the NSG, which will define by default load balancer should be allowed. Virtual network to virtual network communication is allowed. That kind of traffic is already predefined in the NSG. So typically, you can write an NSG at a network interface level, as we spoke, and you can write a NSG at a subnet level. Now, if you write an NSG at a subnet level, it is evaluated independently. And if you write a NSG at a NIC level, it is evaluated independently. That means the rules of NSG1 and NSG2, NSG1 is at an interface level, NSG2 is at a subnet level. They are not going to overlap anytime because they are evaluated differently. No. An allow rule must be exited at both the levels for traffic to be permitted. That means if you want to allow port number 80, if you want to write port number 80 and you have two NSGs, so you need to have a port number 80 allow here and port number 80 allow here. So if you allow in security group 1 and if you deny it here, the traffic will not pass. The traffic will not pass because obviously they are considered as two firewalls. They're considered as two firewalls, but layer 4 till layer 4. Clear?
Yeah.
Now, one thing is there is another concept called as application security groups in Azure. A typical application security group is to logically combine couple of resources. And then on that logically combined resources, if you would like to apply some rules, that can be done with the help of ASG. ASG is very simple. It's a logical combination of resources. For example, I have 4 or 5 VMs and these 4 or 5 VMs, I don't want to name VM in the rule. For example, when I'm writing a rule, at the time of telling the source, it can be anything. But when I configure the destination, I don't want to configure destination as a single IP address. I don't want to configure a destination as a single IP address, but rather I may have a group of servers. Which are running in an auto scaling group. That means we all know that in the cloud automatically systems will expand, right? That means more number of systems will get added into the network. Now, even for that type of systems you want to allow, what you can do, you can create an application security group and keep your server in that application security group. And in the rule, rather than mentioning the destination server IP, you can mention the application security group. It's just a logical grouping of virtual machines so that in the firewall rule, rather than mentioning the IP address of a specific server, you can mention the group name. What is the benefit of group name? If you mention it as a group and if you add more servers to that group, no need to touch the firewall rule. I hope it is clear.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Okay. Now, any questions?
One question.
Sure.
So, which would take the priority? So, the NSG or the application security group?
NSG.
NSG.
NSG is the first preferred, no, because NSG will allow traffic and then it will hit ASG because ASG you cannot write rules, no. It is
So,
just the logical grouping of resources.
yeah. So if I have four VMs and if I have to allow the same port, so I should have the same energy mapped across all those 4 VMs.
No, not like that, not like that. For example, let's take a diagram. It's too easy to make it easy. Just take a whiteboard. One second. Okay, so let's take a simple server. This is a server VM number 1. Okay. Now, how do you typically write a NSG rule? This is the source. Source IP address is 1.1.1.1. Source port is some 730, 7300. Okay. And this is the destination server. Destination IP is 2.2.2.2 and the IP address is port number is 80. Correct? How do you write a rule? Tell me. How do you write an NSG rule?
Allow source.
Okay, source.
If you want a specific port, you can mention that as well.
Yeah, you tell me. You tell me based on the diagram, what is the source IP, what is the source, what is the destination IP, and what is the destination port?
Yeah, 111 and 7300.
Okay, source will be the one who asked the question. Shreyas, this is for you, so that
Yeah.
it will be clear for you. Okay, if you answer it.
Yeah.
So source IP will be this. Source port is 7300. Destination IP is what? And destination port is 80. And the protocol is TCP. HTTP, no? Now, when I say, okay, we will implement an application security group. I'll bring another scenario. I bought VM number 2. I bought VM number 2 into the same group. That means it's a similar server. It is a similar server. VM1 and VM2. Same application is running. The load on the VM is actually increasing. So I created VM number 2 to distribute the load. Clear? From a security point of view, what should I change? What rule I should change? Do I need to create a new rule or do I need to modify the existing rule?
Not to create an application group and add that application group into this rule. Instead of the
That is one technique. That is one technique. If not, Shreyas, you got what Venkateshwara said.
Yes, so we can add these.
Yeah, rather than doing something like this. For example, if I make it 3.3.3.3, rather than modifying the existing rule like this, source is this, destination is, sorry, source port is 7300, destination is 2.2.2.2, and destination is 3.3.3.3, and destination port is 80 and TCP. Rather than doing this way, what we do is we combine them. We combine them into a ASG. And we say, hey, buddy, we will not write root like this. Rather, we will say destination as ASG name, my servers. Like that, into this group, if you add another server, you are not touching the rule.
Yeah.
Clear? Any specific questions from other participants? So guys, please do provide your feedbacks. I have seen the feedback from the last class and I have done some improvements for this class. So I'm sure that you will be observing that as we progress, but please do continue giving feedbacks. That's very important at a weekly level. So if you give me any feedback at this level, I'm sure next week I'll try to bring that change. Yeah, this is clear for everyone. Any questions on the network security groups and ASGs?
Like you can create in one more clarification. You can create an ASG irrespective of what subnet or what
Matter.
net.
It's just a logical grouping of resources. It doesn't matter. But one thing is, if you create a ASG from different subnets, for example, one will be in 10 subnet, second one is in 20 subnet, third one is in 30 subnet, it may not work. The reason is you have to associate your subnets to this. You remember, NSGs are associated at a subnet level. Yeah, if you associate this to all the three subnets, one NSG. Okay. Ideally, you don't do that. The reason is it's like one entry for 6 or 7 subnets, which is a bad architecture. Correct? It's like writing one rule for 6 or 7 networks in your entire network, which we don't do that. No. Right. So we say, OK, each subnet different rule set.
But if there are some common rules which applies to the whole organization globally, in that case, like for example, we may have multiple VNets and then these multiple VNets may belong to the same organization, and then we would like
that
to
should
apply.
Not be a problem. That's what, for example, yeah, very good scenario. Tell me one rule that is applicable across the organization.
Let's say, for example, I don't want to allow allow any social networking site to open.
No. That's what you're worried. We are talking about social network. This is NSG. Only it can handle traffic till layer 4. It can only handle layer till traffic layer 4. So you will never write Facebook IP in your NSG. Where will you write your Facebook IP? You will not write in NSG. You will write it in Azure Firewall.
Or for example, I would like to block all the ICMP traffic across
incoming and outgoing.
Outgoing. Yeah.
Okay, good. Now for this, this is a specific rule. Now what we recommend is to write different NSGs for different subnets and then block it there.
Okay.
Because tomorrow, for any sake, for troubleshooting sake, you have to disable the ICMP firewall. Let's assume for any sake, if you have to disable ICMP, because ICMP is something which is very important when troubleshooting. Yeah, to test the reachability. Now, by any chance, if you disable even one ICMP rule, if you write like that, so across the organization, the ICMP will be disabled, which is actually a risk. However, if you are confident that I'm playing a devil's advocate here, because architecturally you take a decision whichever works fine for you, but these are the things that you need to look for. Okay, at the time of troubleshooting, if I disable this across my entire office, ICMP gets enabled. Am I okay or not? If you're okay, that's absolutely fine. There is nothing wrong. It's
Yeah,
like
but usually when we try to sorry to interrupt, but usually when we try to narrow down the issue or try to troubleshoot on a particular site or a location, right? We usually duplicate a rule above the existing rule, where we try to narrow down to a particular source or narrow down to a particular destination and do it. But here, like, do we have that option to place it
No,
below?
rather than no, you remember we have a rule. Rule numbers plays a very important role.
Right.
So if you want, you can write a specific rule and then apply that rule. For example, give the difference. For example, you have a rule 110 and you have another rule 120. So there is 10 rules space in between. Now insert one rule in 111, something like that, or 115, 118. Insert any rule in the middle. So automatically that is readjusted. That's why you remember when we are creating rules, we create minimum 10 spaces or 20 spaces between.
Yeah, I do remember.
Yeah, that's one way.
Okay.
Yeah, again, it's all about networking. There is nothing wrong in enabling at a global level, having this one, or it's also okay if you want to create each subnet separate network security groups. Up to you. As an architect, you can take a decision. Yeah, Shreyas.
Yeah. So in this example that you've given, so VM1 and VM2, they lie within the same subnet, correct?
Yeah, assuming that they are in the same subnet. But what happens if they are in a different subnet? Can I still make it work? Absolutely, I can make it work.
Okay.
How? Because you just associate the subnet with the security group. That's it.
That's correct. But what if there is an energy at the NIC level? So you can either have the energy at the subnet level or at the NIC level.
Any subnet, sorry, any NSG at a NIC level is specific to that VM.
Yeah.
So for example, you have NSG number 1 here and you have NSG number 2. So you need to write the rules both the sides. Here also you should write a rule. Here also you should write a rule to allow specific to this VM.
Correct.
It is like this. You want to write you have a network based firewall and you have a host based firewall. So if you have enabled host based firewall, that means you have to allow rules in the host based firewall also for the host to get for the host to communicate.
Yes. So in case if we make the changes, if we have the VM at the application security group, we should also ensure that in case if energy is associated at the NIC level, the port has to be allowed there.
Yeah, necessary modifications and the rules has to be written. Perfect.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. Any other questions? So in the last class, we have done 2 experiments. One is creating a network level security group, that is NSG, and then application security group. So where we had 2 servers. In the last class, we had created 2 servers. One is called as web server. The other one is called as management server. And we have 2 users. Assuming that we have 2 users, we have created one security group, one network security group. Yeah, and that network security group had 2 rules. Yeah, one rule towards the web server, the other rule towards the management server. So user can go ahead and access the web server via the NSG, and NSG has a rule to allow to ASG web servers. And then admin can access the management server via RDP protocol through the NSG, and NSG has a rule to allow traffic to management servers ASG. This was the lab that we have done in the last class, and the architecture would look like this. So we have created our own virtual network. We have created our own default subnet, and for this default subnet, we have enabled the NSG. And in that default subnet, we have created 2 virtual machines, web virtual machine and management virtual machine. And web virtual machine is placed in application security group. That is web servers application security group, and management server is placed in management server application security group. And in the NIC, we have written 2 rules to allow HTTP and RDP. This was the lab we have done in the last class. Any questions on this lab?
No.
Okay, let's go to the next lab. In the next lab, that was an Azure firewall implementation. In this lab also, we have created 2 servers. One is called as jump server in one subnet, and we have created a workload in another subnet, workload server. And it was very clearly written that workload subnet is available to internet, because it is going to jump server is available to internet. So me as a user will log into the jump server, and from the jump server I'll access the workload server and do the job. Okay, and then there was a rule which is written on the Azure firewall telling that our workload server will point this. This was not custom route. So workload server will point to the Azure firewall, and the Azure firewall will go ahead and write DNS rules and then HTTPS based application rules like blocking Facebook, blocking Instagram, or whatever the URL that you like. You can go ahead and block it on an Azure firewall level.
Sir, one question.
Yeah.
So, I mean, earlier they have discussed that like we can group different VMs into a single.
Correct. Correct.
AZ, and then use that as a list and to apply any rules there.
Correct.
So,
correct.
is there any possibility to group any other resources other than VMs? So that
Application security groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is possibility. For example, you can take a storage account and then group it. You can take Azure Web Apps and group it.
Okay, so I mean, for example, if you take a storage account, I mean, what kind of scenarios you will use application security for applying your storage account? Is it
for which one?
IAM?
Identity and access management.
Yeah.
No, there is nothing in relation with the identity access management with application security groups.
No, I mean, what kind of use cases that will come to group the storage account?
Student account.
Storage account. You said that it is possible to group storage accounts using application security group. So
no. When it's not student accounts, Account relates are different. See, I'm talking about application security groups. Okay, let me take a step back here. Maybe my understanding was different. So I'll tell you. See, application security group. If this is ASG, you can group VMs. You can create storage accounts. There is this different concept called as storage accounts, and there is a Azure Web Apps. There is a concept called as Azure Web Apps that can be grouped. That's it. Not student accounts or storage accounts.
Maybe I'm not audible properly, but my intention is to talk about storage accounts only.
Okay, storage accounts can be grouped. There is nothing wrong.
I mean, my question is, what kind of scenarios that will
For example, I have a website which is having two sets of data. One is a video data and the other one is an audio data. Now, video data, I want to keep it in a different storage account. Audio data, I want to create in a different storage account. And then both of them should be enabled from a single VM.
Okay, yeah, got it.
The use case can be anything. It's just that from two different buckets, you want to share the data. That's it. Yeah. Maybe I was thinking it as a student account. No. So I'll also show you what we have done in the firewall part. So this was the network setup for us. So we have created a test network. And in that we had two subnets, workload subnet and jump subnet. Jump subnet is public subnet, which is enabled to communicate from outside so that we can log in. And from the jump subnet, we can go ahead and access the workload. So workload has a route towards the internet. Rather than taking the route towards the internet, we are customizing the route from work subnet to the test firewall, and via the test firewall, the traffic will go out. It's all about routing. By default, work subnet will have a default internet connection. We need to make the route change so that it can be diverted via the traffic. The traffic can be diverted via the firewall. On the firewall, you can go ahead and write all of your rules. Okay, that was the last week's class. Do we have any questions on the last week's session? Now, can I assume that last week before you leave, did you stop your servers? Did you delete everything cleanly?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. In case if you have not done that, please do that. It's very important because you will lose the credits. Okay, let's go ahead and do this scenario. So unlike last time, where we have combined multiple services, as some of you are getting confused or some of you are very new, I have made some extra labs here. Rather than the advanced labs, I have added some basic labs which can actually help you. So typically today I'm going to discuss on database security, different features that the databases have. So this is the ideal lab that I have planned to do. This is the ideal lab that I have planned to do. However, in case if you guys are not comfortable, oh Nishant, we are directly jumping into advanced or I'm not getting sequence. So what I have done is I have created another lab here that how to create a very, very simple database. Manually, how do you create a database and then retrieve the data from the database? This is one lab. This is a very basic lab. It will complete in very like 5-10 minutes. And then you will go into the database security. Similarly, I have created a blob storage just to see, what works, what doesn't work. But same blob storage is advanced into a little more diagrammatic. So this one is like the one who is starting, for them it is easy. But the one who want to really secure it, because see, learning database is different from keeping that in the production environment with 4 or 5 systems and then securing it is different. So simple creation of a database is from a system admin point of view, and normal security engineer can only understand the regular system deployment. But this is when the same database is integrated with multiple other systems. Similarly, simple blob storage, but when the blob storage is integrated or the storage account is integrated with different parts of the other services, how do you secure them? Clear? Similarly, I have given Azure Key Vault basic. I'm not going to do the advanced one, that I'm leaving it to very advanced users, because this is a very, very advanced lab. And I think in case doing this will not bring much of the advantage, because there is a lot of software development activity here. However, the basic activities are done here. This is for very advanced users, and this is an optional lab. OK, this is for today's agenda. So database security, endpoint security, and Key Vault basics. And this is, I left it to the very advanced users who want to say, OK, Nishant, what you are teaching is very basic for me. I'll directly jump into advanced. OK, go ahead and jump into advanced here directly. If you are able to complete this lab independently without looking at the documentation, that means you are an advanced user. Whatever the activities that I said here, if you are able to complete without looking at the documentation, that means you are an advanced user. However, if you would like to explore more advanced scenarios, I'll bring more advanced scenarios, but not to the class, but to you who want to specially work on very, very advanced scenarios, assuming that you know basics. So I'm trying to cater both the set of audience, the basic audience and the advanced audience. If you're a basic audience, go with the labs that I'm teaching. If you're an intermediate, go with the lab that I'm teaching. But if you feel you're an advanced user, go ahead and independently complete these labs. That's absolutely fine. There is nothing wrong. Yeah, and I'll also bring more advanced scenarios if you complete all of them. So feel free to ask me, or feel free to let me know that you are an advanced user, so that I can put more advanced labs for you guys, so that you get familiarity with things.
Nishan, one small request.
Yeah.
On the lab, before we are on the SQL database lab, right? So, I mean, we are like, if you are pretty much aware with the firewall stuff, like, since it's, I mean, it's new, Azure is new for me. And if everybody is okay, like a quick recap on how did we do the other two labs, like the recap of the previous lab, like on replication part of it. Like we did go through the theory as of now, but can we also do a part of lab and then move ahead with the next labs? Like
No,
slowly.
these labs are independent. Firewall lab will never be used in database. It's a different technique. So when I say secure, right?
Okay.
We will not put a firewall in front of database. You already learned how to put a firewall. Now, whether you put a database there, whether you put a VM, whether you put a storage account, it doesn't matter. Our focus was there on firewall. Here, our focus is in NSG and ASG. Okay, so it's like this. The labs are designed in such a way that here, if I teach you NSG, right? I'm assuming that if I'm teaching you with VM, it is very, very same as putting a database. It is very, very same as putting a storage account.
Correct. Yeah.
So that means our focus here is on the NSG, not on whether we kept a VM, whether it is a database, whether it is a storage account. So you put anything, the behavior is same.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, when I talk about database security, that doesn't mean that, OK, in front of the database, I'll put a NSG and teach. That is as equivalent to as what we discussed in the last class.
Correct.
No, that is not the way what we are going to talk. When we talk about database security, right? How do you go ahead and enable data privacy on it? Data privacy aspects. How do you go ahead and enable encryption on top of it? How do you go ahead and put access control mechanism on top of it? A different perspective. For us, in the regular infrastructure, for us, database security means putting a firewall and that's it. No. That's not the database security actually is. Database security is all about access control mechanism to the database, encryption mechanism, data privacy mechanisms. For example, implementing data masking techniques, classifying the database data columns, database tables, classifying the database rules, like classifying the columns in the database is what we talk in the database security. Auditing the database, making the modification to the database and looking at who changed what. That goes into the database security. I hope that is clear, Chandan, on where we are coming from or what we are going to cover.
Yeah, that's clear. Because we have pretty much cleared all of the previous labs because we didn't know what would be cost and what would be charged because this is pretty much new. So we have deleted the complete
Correct.
lab we
That's how you
created.
have to do it.
So now we are starting as a fresh one. So we thought we'll go create a device, and behind that is what we do. And again, on the device, we'll do some security. That is what I thought.
No. So the labs are designed in such a way that these are independent. You will only in few labs, in very advanced architectures, you will repeat that. For example, here if you see this lab, the very advanced lab, no, which I was talking here. You see here, in this lab, we create the network again from scratch. We create the subnet. We create the network security groups manually. We create the key vault manually. We create the database manually and then integrate. So that whatever you learned in bits and pieces, you are putting into an enterprise grade architecture. Obviously, when you're putting an enterprise grade architecture, you have to do everything from scratch once again.
Got it. Yeah.
So it's like this. You learn each component independently with certain scenarios and then bring all the scenarios together and club it. So it is like asking one person to build a enterprise system for a 10,000 people company.
Got it.
So this is advanced. That's why I said this advanced is self lab.
Okay.
If you're already comfortable with this, like with this, you will reach till intermediate level. No, Nishant, I want to become one person who does everything in one organization. Yes, go for it and do this lab. But this lab needs development also because as a part of your organization, you have developers also, right? So you have to behave like a developer also. Yeah, so you have to behave like a visual. See, you will have a Visual Studio Code. You should know C# programming language to consume Vault. You need C# programming language skills to consume database server. Then do the encryption and do the key vault access management. Pass the values to the SQL app like a real world enterprise and the real world challenge. But more advanced users.
So, Nishant, when as a cloud engineer, to what extent he should be aware of coding, or is it mandatory to be doing some development activity?
5 years before, if you have asked me this question, cloud engineers doesn't need development experience. But today, if you ask me, you should know what developer knows, minimum 30%. Whatever developer knows, that minimum 30% you should know as of today. The reason I'll tell you. If you go to any job description of a cloud engineer or cloud security engineer, they will expect you to know minimum one programming language in hand. You take any programming language, C#, Java, .NET, or Go language, Ruby, Python. One programming language is expected out of a cloud engineer now.
Okay.
Most of the best companies' job descriptions, right? You go for Amazon, you go for Netflix, you go for Google, Microsoft. They expect you to know one programming language. The reason is because you are going to deploy applications written by the developers. If developer is facing an issue, and if he is trying to tell you that my SQL server, sorry, my application cannot access SQL server, you should be in a position to understand how he has written the application, how he has deployed the application, and how the communication is working. Otherwise, how will you troubleshoot? That is called as application support engineer, no? In our data center world. Correct. They are nothing to do with cloud engineers. See, the infrastructure guy will never fiddle with application in the old world. But in the world of cloud, the application engineer is same as cloud engineer. That is what is expected. So it's like this. In the real world, you are expected as a Superman. You should be a Superman and you should know everything. That's how the expectations are in today's cloud, because basic things are easily learned by everyone. Even a fresher is also learning cloud and coming out. So the toughness is increasing actually these days.
But is it not the DevOps engineer role who would be little?
Actually, if I have to tell you, DevOps is outdated now.
Oh, okay.
DevOps is already outdated. There is something called site reliability engineering. That is what is picking up SREs. So SRE is like whatever SRE does, no, that only 10% or 20% DevOps guys do.
Okay.
So that world of DevOps is out. SREs are coming in. So people expect an SRE to be in their company rather than a DevOps engineer. The reason is SRE engineer can do development, and SRE engineer, when I say SRE engineer can do development, he can do full-fledged development. And the same SRE engineer is capable of doing full-fledged automation. So why should I need a DevOps who does only automation, partial development? He will never do development. He will only get involved in development phases to understand the application. But SRE engineers are capable of developing, fixing the issues on the fly when an issue raises. That means he's a developer, but he also knows infrastructure.
Sorry for a basic question. Like what are the exact roles and responsibility of an SRE engineer?
That I'll show you on a Naukri. That's better. Because rather than we talking, let's talk a senior site reliability engineering. Yeah, maybe you can see here. Participate in 24/7 site reliability engineering rotations, escalation workflows, proactively monitor, measure and improve all areas of infrastructure and operations, build and maintain platform solutions, focus on efficiency and reduce the toils, design and build frameworks, systems, processes that our engineers build, integrate, deploy, scale, manage their software, providing efficiency, agility, flexibility for the full CI/CD, a lot of expectations.
This is not something related to solution architect as well.
Yeah, solution architect is a small role of SRE. See, SRE knows everything in the organization. That's how he is treated. Yeah, a little tough. This is a little tough role. See, develop a fully automated multi-environment observability stack, SaaS system, and extend it to predict capacity needs based on the usage patterns. So SRE is a little more tough role, standard role, who can do multiple things. See, fluent in one or more of the programming languages, Java, Python, Shell, and Go. Fluent in CI/CD methodologies. Jenkins, for them it is Jenkins. In this company's case, let's see, 4.5 to 7 years of experience in IT operations and SDLC methodologies. Experience in configuration management tools, NoSQL databases, Ruby, PHP, Python equivalent. Having a strong programming skills in Java, Python, and Go. So pretty much if you see any site reliability engineering, you will see programming skills, expectations. See, Linux, Hadoop, Kafka, Spark, Hive, HBase in their case for this. The two deep working knowledge they need. So yeah, based on the company's type of company, if they are a big data company, they may expect you to know components of big data with programming language with SRE. So accordingly. Yeah.
But this would be more applicable for the people who've been developing, right?
I cannot say that because I have a couple of friends who were network engineers and now they are site reliability engineers in cloud. The reason is cloud is a very big world, no? For example, in your company, how many developers will be there and how many components will be there? If you look at it, if you go to the cloud, for example, in your organization, if you have only 10 firewalls, in the AWS data center, you may have like 1 million firewalls. Correct? Now, for 1 million firewalls, you cannot have one site reliability engineer. So when you go to cloud providers, like that means assuming that you are working in AWS, AWS means in AWS payroll you are working, assuming that you are working on Microsoft payroll, assuming that you are working on Netflix payroll, for them, there will be like 300, 400 engineers who are only working on networking and network site reliability engineering. Then you will have 1,000 engineers who are working only on application level site reliability engineering. But you're not that big company, no? When you're a small company, everything is expected from you. So as a small company, as a site reliability engineer, everything is expected. But if you are in a big company, you as a site reliability engineer, you will be assigned a domain. Okay, you are coming from networking background. Your responsibility is to do network site reliability engineering. So the role will change. Because you are working in a very big company and where you have 1,000 firewalls. So your full-time job is to only maintain that firewalls. But if I am with the same experience, if I am going to a 50 people company, and you cannot say, oh, I am carrying a network experience, I will only do site reliability engineering for 50 people company network. No one will accept it. Yeah.
Sorry for going a bit out of context. I mean, like the cloud architect sits on top of this, or
Cloud architect in site reliability engineering domain, cloud architects work with SREs together. They don't guide SREs because SREs also very good at what they do. So we cannot treat them SREs. Oh, you work under the architect. No, SREs should work with architect. Clear? Okay, let's go ahead and do a very simple teaching and then we will go into the next one. The next one we are going to talk about is the databases. If you talk about database security in Azure, and trust me guys, in the world of data center, security means always looking at firewall, looking at IDS, IPS, looking into Active Directory. That's it. In very rare companies, in the data center, database security means encryption, classification of data, audit trail logging, access control mechanism. Is in very rare companies, database security will be like this. Now, typically when we say database security, right? These are the components that you should consider in cloud. In cloud, these are the database security parameters, like who is having access to the database, who can authenticate with the database. Did we put enough firewalls? Like, OK, whatever the port that is required, did you enable it or not? From the firewall, from which network the traffic is coming, from which network the traffic has to be blocked. Yeah, if someone is accessing it, who accessed at what point of time, the database auditing. And inside the database, there will be a lot of data. Maybe personal data will be there. Maybe my employee information will be there. Employee name, employee age, employee salary information is stored in the database. Now, how did you classify your data? No. Do you have a data discovery mechanisms? Are you doing vulnerability assessment? Are you doing advanced threat protection? Are you doing dynamic data masking? Are you doing transparent data encryption? Or are you ensuring that every time the data is encrypted at rest as well as in transit? Now, these are all the database security things. But Nishant, can we learn all of this today? No. First of all, if I say cloud cannot be learned in 1 day or 2 days. Even after 2 years of experience in cloud, you will say that you only know 10% or 20%. You cannot say that, no, I know everything in cloud, because it's impossible. It's impossible that you know everything in cloud. The reason is, by the time we are talking now, no, a new version of the new service could have released. So we don't know. Yeah. So it's people telling that, okay, I know everything in the cloud. No, they know everything in the cloud that they understand or that they use in their environment. So if I'm using firewall in my environment, I know everything in cloud. That's how I tell. But ideally, no. So learning all of this in one class is also not possible. Out of this, we will take only few parameters and then we will do it. Yeah, when we talk about database security, all of these database security comes into the picture. So to give a similar analogy, you all know OWASP security testing guide. You all know OWASP security testing guide, no?
Yeah.
Have you done penetration testing before?
No.
Any one of you?
No,
Okay, so that means if I do a web application pen test, okay, in the next modules, you will have a pen test course. Okay, now tell me, if I am telling that I am doing pen testing, that means you are expecting me to do every of these test case. Correct?
Yeah.
You are expecting me to do all this, no? But do you do it actually in the real world? No, you will not do it. Because if you have to do all these test cases per application, you need a lot of time and you will never have time. So what you will do, you will run an automated scanner. Whichever that automated scanner gives you, those only the attack vectors that you will do pen test. So you'll do vulnerability scanning and then do a pen test. So ideally, when we say database, when we say application security testing, means you have to do everything like this, which you don't do. And in any training you go across the world, you will not do all of these testings in one. So similarly, when we say database security, right, holistically, these many components will be there. That is what I mean. Holistically, these many components that will be there only when we talk about database security. Each of them is a specialization. Putting a database firewall is one specialization. Making authentication, typically developer does. Database auditing, auditor does. Data classification, data privacy guy does. VAPT guy will does vulnerability assessment and advanced threat protection. Data privacy guy will do dynamic data masking. The database engineer will do encryption. Different roles for different people. All these activities they do in the cloud. Clear?
But the assessment will be like the automated tool, right? Usually they do automate. They'll have scanners installed on the network, so that
Which
gives
one?
you.
Repeat that.
Yeah. So about the vulnerability assessment, right? So there'll be automated scanners installed on the network or wherever the location is. So this will give you automated generated reports like on a weekly or monthly basis based on which the PT will be done, right?
Okay, you're talking about vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, right?
Right.
Good.
So
now I'll take a scenario here. For example, if it is an infrastructure as a service, it is possible. When it is a platform as a service, how? Because in platform as a service, you don't have access to the database.
Correct.
You don't get access to the shell. You will never be able to access to the database and then put an agent there. Then who should do the job?
They internally have the assessments done and they share the report, right?
The cloud provider will does the assessment for you.
Yeah, correct.
So cloud provider will do the assessment and give it to you. Yes, that's correct. In infrastructure as a service, the behavior is different. In platform as a service, the behavior is different. Yeah. So when you come to only authentication, database can be integrated with Azure Active Directory or Database can be integrated with an Active Directory that is sitting in your organization. Clear? So database administrator, when he has to log in, he will use his Active Directory username password to log into the database and do the operations. So he will have one username password across all the databases and across all the systems, the one which you are also doing, right? Today, you use your Active Directory username password to log into your laptop, and you will use the same Active Directory username password to log into the HR management system, and you will use the same Active Directory username password to log into a destination server. Correct? This is called as identity and access management, right? And identity and access management engineers will go ahead and give you rules. They put a rules and the policies telling that, OK, Nishant can access server number 1, he cannot access server number 2. Clear? Is this clear? This is one part of database security. Any questions? The second part of the database security is putting a firewall. So telling that, OK, I have 4 or 5 database servers. And I'm telling that, OK, from this client IP address, I will allow the traffic. From this client IP address, I will not allow the traffic. If the client IP address is from this range to this range, I will allow it. So you can write server level firewall rules and database level firewall rules. There are 2 levels of firewall rules in the SQL. Nothing to do with Azure firewall. SQL comes with its own inbuilt firewall. SQL comes with its own inbuilt firewall in Azure. I'm talking about in Azure. In Azure, SQL database comes with its own firewall. However, you can also integrate Azure firewall with this. So you have a server level firewall rules and you have database level firewall rules. Yeah, if you are coming from internet or if you are coming from any of the Azure systems and you want to, put a rule, you will write them at database level firewall rules. And then if you have a cluster, for the cluster, you can create a different firewall rule set and then configure it. So typically you have a database firewall rules which will allow client IP addresses from specific databases. Like for example, master client synchronization, client synchronization, master slave synchronization, master synchronization. That kind of rules you will write it at a database level. But if you want any other Azure service like Azure VM want to access to Azure database, Azure application want to access to Azure database, then you will write server level access rules. This is another part of database security. The third part of database security is database auditing. By default, Azure databases comes with auditing capabilities. You just need to enable it. That's it. Automatically, it will start analyzing the data. It will report any unauthorized database activity. It will automatically enable policies at a database level and server level. You can go ahead and pull all the logs out and store it in a separate storage bucket. You can write more policies and apply to databases or database servers. Both are different. So do you know what is the difference between a database and a database server? There's nothing to do with cloud in regular. There is a difference between database and database server. Anyone?
Database is where the actual data is stored, I guess.
If this is your hardware, if this is your Windows 10 operating system, if this is your Windows 10 or Windows Server operating system, to be very specific, and on top of this, if you are installing MySQL, Okay, inside the MySQL, you will have databases. This is called as DB server. These are called as databases. There is a DB security also. There is a DB server security also. Is it clear? There is a database security and there is a database server security. For example, installing an antivirus comes under database server security. Who is having access to what database is the database security. Is it clear? And who is having access to access this Windows server? That is the database server security. Are you guys understanding? And let me also tell you, if you are assuming that database is not security, database security is not important. No, you're wrong. OK, is it clear? If you are coming from offensive and defensive world, for you application and network pen testing, that is what you are interested in. If you are coming from a defensive point of view, like blue team, where you only write firewall rules and all, for you firewall rules means security. But if you look at holistically, every component has a security in defense in depth model. Here, any questions on this? Guys, if you don't understand, there is nothing wrong. You can ask me once again.
Hi, Nishan. One question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there is going to be Azure database which has a default monitoring capacity.
Correct.
It can capability to monitor before.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that be an issue for user data?
No, because now what type of monitoring when we say is it will monitor this type of columns. That's it. It will monitor what data you are writing. See, for example, what data you're writing is different from who is accessing. For example, Nishant is accessing to write a SQL database. For example, he has created a select star from table name. Now it will say, OK, select statement is written by Nishant. Create statement is created by Nishant. Like that, it will monitor.
But those logs, wouldn't they be present as part of the DB server itself?
I'm sorry.
Those logs, wouldn't they be present as part of some kind of off log?
Off log means
Authentication.
Yeah, authentication logs are also there. Authentication logs are different. And this database. OK, let's ask this question. Have you heard about Data Guardian?
Yeah.
What does Data Guardian will do? Data Guardian is a very big, very expensive tool, which is used by big companies. Data Guardian. Database security software. Yeah. Now, this Data Guardian tools, you know what they do? They access each and every query. They know who is running which query and what type of query and accessing which database. Why do you need that? So deep analytics. Why I need so deep analytics? Because I want to know each and every user what type of queries they are running. IBM.
So despite being a third-party tool, people will still use it for their local database where the user sensitive data would be.
Look at this IBM Security Guardian Solutions. Very expensive tool, but still people will use. Where they want to know each and every query that is running and who running it on which column they will know. Very, very detailed solution. So it's up to you. Again, I'm not telling, for example, some people will tell me why firewall. But if I go to another network, they will say firewall is more important for me. You're getting Sai Krishna.
Okay.
Sorry, Sri Krishna.
Yeah,
for example, one person will tell why I need IDPS. IDPS don't care. I don't care. But if I go to another network, they'll say, oh, IDPS is very important for us. In some companies, they will say SIM. Yeah, what you will do with SIM? SIM will not give me any value. But if you go for a big enterprise, they will say SIM adds a lot of value. It all depends upon where you want to see the value in your organization. But still, there are people who does that, and there are still people who says, oh, these are all waste solutions. It all depends upon where you want to look at.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that's another
Yeah,
one.
thanks.
No worries. Then you have the next one, data discovery and classification. Yeah, data discovery and classification will help you to quickly identify what type of data you are. For example, let's talk about, we all hear this data privacy, no? Have you started hearing about data privacy these days? Is data privacy is a part of data security? Okay, let me ask this question. Can I ignore data privacy? What is there in data privacy, man? That policies, procedures, no? I'll ignore it. Can I do that?
No.
Maybe in India, if you are there, you can ignore it.
Yeah, there's no compliance.
Maybe if you are in India, you don't care about it. But look at, if you are in US, if you are in UK, are you ready to pay this much amount of fine? Is your company ready to pay this much amount of fine? Amazon paid 746 million euros, which is equivalent to $877 million. $225 million. Google paid $102 million. Facebook paid $68 million. Google paid $68 million. Don't you think Google have the best security in the world? Google is the technology developer, no? Amazon is the technology developer, right? Facebook is the technology developer, right? Why they are paying millions of dollars fine? Then don't they have technologies? Don't they have the best of the best security engineers in the world? They have it, but still they face the problem because small things are ignored. Little things are ignored, and that will cause a big problem. Mainly when the data privacy is getting implemented. That's why Indian companies restrict data privacy. They're always negative because the moment data privacy comes into the picture, you need minimum 3 people extra. Minimum 3 people you have to hire newly. Because to just do data privacy mapping, they need engineers. And to understand what infrastructure we are using, what type of data we are using and all, we need. Yeah, which database has what type of data and how the data is mapped to each other. If you all say ISMS, no, it's tougher than ISMS implementation. If you are coming from that background, okay. So why are these guys paying small mistakes? Taking the consent, they forgot to take the consent. They added an extra cookie in the website that they are shown. That will cost them millions of dollars. Now, if you are a company, who is interested to tackle this kind of issues, who is interested to even handle this kind of issues, Azure tells, don't worry, each and every column we will visit. In our databases, whatever the data that you keep, we will do something called as data discovery. We will tell you what type of data is there in your database, and then we will say whether under which category it will fall, whether you want to classify it as GDPR specific data, whether you want to classify it as India Data Privacy Act, whether you want to classify it as California Data Privacy Act, we will help you in the classification. So that tomorrow when you are implementing data privacy, you know how much of your data is falling under personally identifiable information, how much amount of data is falling under sensitive personal information, and how much amount of data is falling under non-sensitive personal information or non-sensitive information. So because data classification is a part of the data privacy. Clear? For some people, data privacy is, hey, we don't care, but Google cannot ignore that because they operate in all countries. So they have to follow every country's rules and regulations. Yeah. Now this is one part of database security. Then Microsoft Defender for cloud, which is a security center, which is a monitoring like an SIEM. Have you ever monitored databases with SIEM? I'm sure no. No one does that. But ideally, SIEM is also database is also a system, right? Why don't you monitor SIEM? Why don't you monitor your databases? We are never taught. No one taught us that we have to monitor databases. Everyone taught us that we have to monitor application. Everyone taught us that we have to monitor load balancer. Everyone taught us we have to monitor network devices, but no one taught us why we should monitor databases. Which is, I have seen many companies, they don't even monitor their databases. They assume that databases are always secure. No. But here, in the world of cloud, you have to monitor it. Again, if you want, you can turn it off, no problem. Azure SQL database has an inbuilt vulnerability scanner. It will go ahead and scan vulnerabilities and it will identify what issues are there in your vulnerabilities and it will tell you. Like a firewall rule is disabled, it will go ahead and scan. You have enabled any rule, it will identify. If there is sensitive data columns, if there are permissions for more users at the database level, it will do periodic scannings and will give you the reports, which will help you to fix if there are any issues. Then Azure itself has inbuilt advanced threat protection, like it will identify if there is an SQL injection. If there is an SQL injection vulnerability possible, data exfiltration, any unsafe actions like delete all operations, any brute force, any anonymous client logins. It's an inbuilt feature in Azure SQL databases. Think you are working for a US based company. In US security, social security number. In India, we don't care about Aadhaar number. But in US, no one will share you their social security number. So what if you have a social security number and you want to mask the data? Azure database will also help you in masking the data. Yeah. And you can also enable transparent data encryption so that the customer doesn't feel, the customer no need to know the key. The customer no need to know the key to decrypt it. There are two ways. Transparent data encryption where the customer no need to know the key. However, there is regular encryption where the customer needs the key to decrypt the data. Both is possible. Both transparent data encryption is possible and regular data encryption is possible. So these are the so many security options that you only have in database in Azure. Some are basics, some are very advanced implementations. But possible security measures that you can keep. Any questions? Yeah.
Will there be? There was somewhere it was mentioned about always encrypted data. So does it mean the data will stay encrypted?
Yes.
Till it reaches the end user?
Correct. So data at storage, data in transit. And data in use also will protect it. There is something called as confidential computing. Okay. When you say confidential computing, Intel has designed some processors where without decrypting the data, it can process it. So when I say decrypting, it will do decryption, but at a processor level. Not at a disk level, not at a network level. At a processor level, it will decrypt it. So that means
so there's some kind of chipset for doing that.
Yeah, it's a different chipset. It's an entirely
won't
different
even come
chipset.
to RAM.
No, even data will not be in the plain text, even in the RAM.
Okay.
Only inside the processor, it will be decrypted. That's called as confidential computing technology. in Azure. In Azure, the name is confidential computing. In other technologies, there are different names. Okay. Any questions here? Looks like a scientific movie, no? Guys, do you think like this is a scientific movie or so many options are there and we don't know? Yeah, like this. If you have heard me talking 2 years before, this many slides were not there. 5 years before, this many were not there. Next year, when I'm teaching a different batch, I may add more concepts here. The reason is, yes, it improves on a daily basis. Now, that's a lot of theory. Let me know if you have any questions. We'll jump into practicals. Now, Nishant, do you show us all the 10 different ways of doing things? No. If I show you all the 10 different ways of doing things, I need 6 days. Yeah. Only teaching database security. So I'll only show you a few, which will help you to get that correct grasp of what is more important. Yeah. Clear? Okay. I think what we'll do, we'll take a very quick break and then come back from the break and continue. That makes more sense. Yeah. Yes. Otherwise, rather than starting it and then in the middle, stopping for a break, huh?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Yeah. I'll just tell you once again. It's around 11:20. I'll meet you by around 11:40. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Nishant, I might need a minute of yours.
Yeah, sure. Sure, Pawan.
I just wanted to share my screen and I wanted to show you some errors I've been throwing up when I'm trying to delete my resource group.
Okay. But why are you doing lab now? Because we have already deleted everything, no?
Yeah, I mean, in my last lab, when I tried to do the same, and
can you show me? I cannot see that. I can only see that chat. See, where is the error?
This is the fail.
Okay, cancel this. Just cancel this. Notifications. Just go to home. Okay, go to resource groups. No, not there. The top, so many headings were there. No, you will see all resource groups over there. Yeah. Just select one resource group AZ09. Yeah, select that resource group name. No, they're not. Top, AZ09. Yeah, copy that. Yeah, click on delete resource group. Yeah, paste it here and click on delete. Yeah, let's give a minute. Yeah, it will delete the resource group. Like that, you can delete all other resource groups which are not important for you. Don't worry if you delete all the resource groups, when you do the next lab, automatically they get created. Don't worry.
Because I tried doing this multiple times, but it's
always reload the page, log out, log in. If it is an old existing cache, if it could not delete it client side, then it will throw sometimes like this errors.
Sure.
Yeah? Okay, fine.
Thanks,
Hey, welcome back, everyone.
Hi, Nisha.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
hi.
you have any questions, we will start and see if we have any doubts. Once everyone comes, we will continue. As I mentioned, 11:40, we'll continue the 11:40, but yeah, meanwhile.
In the last class, we have discussed about one question regarding this VM restart on changing the DNS.
Sorry, Venkateshwara, repeat that.
In the last class, we had a question like if we change the DNS settings in the host OS, then VM is getting restarted, right?
Yeah. Correct.
But like, at least I couldn't get any reliable reasons for that. At least maybe I didn't understand, but can we discuss that?
So let's understand. The problem with Azure is when you change the DNS, you have to reboot the machine. That's mandatory.
Okay.
That's it. It gets automatically rebooted because there is a change in the DNS. Ideally, this is not the same with other cloud providers.
Okay. What is the reason behind it? Like any specific?
The reason Azure tells is that they rely on the domain names rather than the IP addresses in their network. In their network, host name will not change every time. No, IP address will change on a continuous basis. Correct? If it is a static IP address, then it will not change. But if it is a dynamic IP address, it will change. But they have to monitor your device continuously, right? They cannot rely on the IP address. So what they do is they implement something called as DDNS, dynamic DNS, where automatically the IP address of the system can change irrespective of the domain name. Domain name will be consistent till you delete the VM. So that's why whenever there is a change in the DNS, it will get restarted and it will report to something called as service discovery agent, which is monitored by Azure to know, okay, how many systems are up, how many systems are down.
So I mean, changing the DNS in the host OS level and the network interface level, how it will be different in Azure?
Changing the changing the
DNS server in the network interface level and or like changing the DNS settings in the host.
That is
OS
different.
Level.
That is different. Host level is inside the VM. Outside the change. So outside, if you do, there will not be any impact inside. You can without restarting, it will work because you are changing it on router. And you are changing it on the interface level outside. So that will never have any impact on the inside system. If you want to change inside, then you need to reboot.
But still these change, I mean, these DNS settings needs to apply on the VM.
Yes,
right?
it will get applied. It will get applied.
Without
Because
restarting.
here VM doesn't resolve on himself. No, it is resolving on someone else at a NIC level.
Yeah.
Yes, let's go ahead and create a very simple database. First, in this lab, we will create a database and work on the database, and then we will continue. Okay. So again, let me go ahead and quickly start the database part. And I'm sure most of you have the link, right? In case if you don't have the link, I have shared it in the chat box when we joined the session. However, I'm going to share it again. Just keep it handy. So for the SQL creation, let me go again. Before I taught you how to create a resource group. In case if I don't mention here, do you know how to create a resource group?
Yes, sir.
Again, don't assume that, oh, Nishant, you have never created a resource group. It's all now you have to take responsibility. I taught you already, so you have to reuse it, reuse the skill. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and go to SQL databases, SQL databases.
Nishant, can you share your screen?
Sorry, yeah. So go here to the Microsoft Azure page, search for SQL, or I'll just switch my directory so that I'll go into the consulting directory and then I'll do that job. Search for SQL databases. So click on Create SQL Database. So you can select here, add, create, anything is fine. Now you see here, it's at the basic settings. In that, you will select the MSDN subscription, or in your case, Azure Pass, and then create a new resource group. I will not tell you what name you are going to create, up to you. Yeah, and it's asking you, enter the database name. Just say, I'll say it as DB1. Now select the server. Okay, here you see there is no database server. There is no database server. I'll create a new database server. I'll create a new database server. Did you understood now what is the difference between database and database server? See, database is just a simple database inside a server. So let's go ahead and create a new server. So it's asking you enter the server name. I'll say SQL Server Nishant 1234. Some unique name. You need to give a unique name in the East US region and use SQL authentication. Use SQL authentication. That means I don't want to integrate my SQL with Azure Directory because I never taught you Azure Active Directory yet. So I'm going to use SQL based authentication. That means the authentication to the database will happen from the database, not from the Active Directory. Now you got it. How do you make your database to accept Azure Active Directory? How do you make your database to only accept simple database authentication or both? So at this moment, I'm going with SQL authentication. The SQL username is SQL user and the password is in the list. I just created a password. Now we have created a SQL server. We just created a SQL server. Now that SQL server, on this SQL server, we are creating a database. We are creating a database. Do you want to elastic pool? No. Do you want your workload to be deployed on a development environment? Just make it production, doesn't matter because we are going to delete it afterwards. Look at this. Look at this. Very, very important. Huh? Generation 5 2 core 32 GB storage. Yeah, is configured. That is OK. Anyway, we are going to delete this. The assumption is that you will delete it after this lab. In case if you don't delete it, it will exhaust your resources. I can select development also. See, 1 core 32 GB will come. That's it. See, click on configure databases. You can go ahead and select the sizes, blah, 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 and all. You see the amount of charges that you will be paying. However, at this moment, I don't want to fiddle anything with this. I'll close it. I'm just showing you. Yeah. Or you can select the production also. This fine serverless. Now, do you want backup storage to be redundant, locally redundant backup? Doesn't matter. All this doesn't matter because we are going to delete them later. What is more important is when you go to networking section, where do you want to keep? See, do you want to give access? Do you want to give access to this database? Or do you want to create a public endpoint? When you create a public endpoint, look at it. Automatically firewall rules is asking, allow Azure services and resources to access this server. That means if you already have any of the Azure services, that means any server which is running on Azure or any service which is there on Azure, do you want to enable or do you want to add your IP address? I will say all my Azure services should be able to access my public endpoint. All my Azure services should be able to access my public endpoint. You remember I was telling you that it has its own firewall at this moment. This is the firewall. How to manage that? As you progress, you will see. OK, just go with the next security part. Now it's asking you, do you want to enable Microsoft Defender for SQL? Not now. In the next lab, you will do it. OK, click next. So now there is a ledger. So ledger cryptographically verifies the integrity of your data and detects any tampering that might have occurred. So whose responsibility is that to enable all of this? Identity access management, use system assigned and user assigned management activities, enable TLS, transparent data encryption. All this is our responsibility to configure. And if you go to additional settings, now do you want to use a blanket database? That means you want to create a very simple database. Sorry, you want to create a plain database, or do you want to restore from a backup, or do you want a sample database to be injected? Do you want a sample database to be injected? For this to access, we need to access our data, no? I should show you, right? Because I'm not sure how many of you are comfortable in writing a SQL schema and all. So what I'm doing is I'm asking my Azure to create a sample database. I'm asking my Azure to create a sample data set. Clear? If you are comfortable with databases, you can say use existing data none, and then you can create your own schema and all. Because we are not in the database class, we are in the database security class. I'm ignoring the database operations. Clear? Any questions before I hit rewind create?
So what is the purpose of the client IP address that we have seen in the networking section?
For example, here, when I say Azure services and resources, right? Only systems running on Azure can access it.
Okay.
If I say add current IP address, that means my public IP address of my network will be added. So that means only I can access.
Okay.
At this moment, I am telling only Azure should access. No one else from the external world should access.
Okay.
Yeah. Questions? OK, let me create. Look at it. 16,000 is the cost per month. 16,355 is the cost per month. 2 cores, 32 GB storage. Understood? If you forget to delete this, trust me, if you forget to delete this, credits will just get completed in 1 or 2 days. See, deployment template validation failed. Template parameter minimum capacity was provided as invalid value. Expected a value of type string URI, but received a value of integer. So that means somewhere we have made it wrong. So look at the raw error. If you get an error, something like this. Line number 262 position properties template minimum capacity. So I need to mention something like minimum capacity and maximum capacity. Where did we forget? If I go back, where is the minimum capacity? Now I'll go to basics. This time rather than production, I'll choose a development. I think that's better. I'm going for development. OK. Same configuration. See, estimated cost is 344 INR per month. Are you understanding? Choosing something wrongly will make it to give a different pricing totally. So choose a development environment. Choose a development environment. Is it clear? This instruction we will not see in the lab guide. Huh? This instruction you will not see in the lab guide. Just to tell you.
And if we run out of the balance, will it go in negative value or will
no, you will not be able to spin any services. So if it goes in negative value, then everyone will start using it. No. No. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, tell me. Okay.
Do we really see? Sorry, Kaushal, you can go on.
Oh, sorry, please go ahead. I got it.
So, do we really get some kind of a difference when we use a SQL server locally on-prem and using cloud? Do we get some kind of a latency difference at least?
No, I don't think so. There will not be any difference. The only reason is it all depends upon your internet connectivity. How good the internet connectivity is.
So during the process of this creation, we have created one server also, right? Like one machine. So do we get to see that in our resource group separately?
Yes,
Or
yes. I'm going to show you that. For example, if you see here, we created, no, if you go to the resource groups, now you see SQL Server and DB. They are treated as two different resources. Huh?
resources, can we manage that separately? For example, if we want to use that for any other purposes or any other patching purposes from outside, so is it
No,
accessible?
this is a pass. It's a pass. In pass, you don't do patching.
Yeah.
AWS does the patching for you.
So ideally, we don't have any access to manage.
No, you don't have any access. If you take infrastructure as a service, then you will have everything.
So in this case, then like ideally the cost of this SQL server is higher than the VM that we create individually.
You're only paying 300 rupees per hour. Sorry, per month. which is very, very cheap. Correct? See, understand.
Yeah.
You have to run a VM on top of the VM running a database.
Yeah.
And you are just running a database. Which one is cheaper for you? Obviously, it is cheaper. And this is a serverless. Serverless means as you progress, it will scale. Yeah. Otherwise, if you take infrastructure as service, you have to predict the capacity before and keep it. So there's a lot of difference. Yeah. Now you all understood how to create a database. Any questions? So if I go to the SQL server, now you see this is the server details. You can set server firewall. See, you can connect with Azure Data Studio or you can connect with a Visual Studio. So you can open your configure firewall and then do a lot of stuff here. You can directly connect to the database. Yeah, if you go, you can see the deployments that happen. Security here. That's where our importance is. Recommendations. See, visit Microsoft Defender Cloud to manage security across virtual networks and apps. View all the recommendations in Defender Cloud. Yeah, we did not enable anything, so it will not show you anything of that sort. OK. Now I'll go to databases section. We'll see the database. You see query editor. Click on the query editor. Now, what was the username? You already know. SQL user. What was the password? You just enter the password that you have created. And you see SQL server requested by the login. Client with IP address is not allowed to access the server. Did I enable my username password? No. But why is it telling firewall rule is enabled? The master database to create a firewall rule for this IP address or the range. It may take up to 5 minutes for this change to effect. I did not allow myself, no. You got it? I cannot allow. It is treating me as a client. It is treating me as a client, regular client, not as Azure service. Are you getting me, guys? This is treating me as a regular client, not treating me as an Azure service. Any questions? So where should I configure? Where should I allow myself? Do I have any configuration to allow? See, there's nowhere security here because you are looking at a database, not a database server. You are looking at a database, not a database server. But what you can do here, set server firewall. This database server firewall, you can configure it and say this is public networks is allowed. Now what I should do is I should write a firewall rule. Where will I add my client IP address? Tell me. See, add your client IP address and then click save. Now I will be allowed. Now I'll be allowed to access the server. So close it. Go to SQL databases. Click on the database. Go to the query editor. Enter the password. And OK. Now you see I have logged into the database. This is a client. This is a GUI based client which is available inside the Azure itself. So let's go ahead and run a simple query. We have injected some dummy database, no? Let's write a simple query for the dummy database. See, failed to execute. The multi-part PC name could not be found. The multi-part identifier. OK, but let me see whether the tables are there. Yes, I have tables here. That's good enough. Now you can go ahead and write your own select queries. Or maybe I could have written the entire query. See, now the query is run. Is it clear? Now, whatever we have done, is it to do anything with the security? Did you do any security thing here?
No.
Are you sure we did not do anything in the security part?
We have added the security rule, right?
We have added
So,
security rule,
firewall
client
for
side
the
security rule. Yeah, that's it. For this lab, that's it. Okay, very easy, no? To understand. I did not make it complex, huh? I made one easy lab, one tough lab. Those who are comfortable in doing that, those who are comfortable in doing this, both I will teach. Okay, that's it. Now with this, I'll end the lab for this and I'll give you a couple of minutes to complete this lab. I think 20-25 minutes is good enough for this lab to complete. So please complete this. OK. Now what's the time here? Around 12:07, 12:30. Complete this lab. OK, maximum. Create SQL database. Once you complete this, I'll go to the next database security. In this case, I will not integrate one. I'll integrate 4 or 5 different components and then I'll show you. Basic database security, advanced database security, or like intermediate level. Yeah, I'll give you time to do this. If something is not there, assume it. OK. If some component is not there in the instructions, assume it because you have already learned how to assume things. OK. And please reload the page before you start the instructions. Please reload the page before you start the instructions. Please reload the page before you start the instructions. Yeah.
So one question. Nishant, are you there?
Sorry, I was speaking on mute. Sorry. Yes, tell me.
So, for example, by any chance, if we forgot the password, SQL password in this case, is there any way that we can recover it? Or?
Very good question. That is where it's a big challenge. When things do go bad, I'll show you here. Now on the server part, I'll show you not this one, not this, not the right one. SQL databases. If you go to the database,
you have to share your screen.
You see connection strings. You will never use your database username password. You will use something called as this connection string. If you use connection string, it's easy for you. And that's why we don't recommend you to have only simple authentication. Rather, we always ask you to have Active Directory based authentication. So you will never forget it. If you forget it also, you can reset it from the Active Directory. So if you go to Active Directory, you can reset it. You can reset anyone's password over there. So if you reset the password of that user, automatically that user will be reflected in the databases. See, look at the users now. Here you have n number of users you can create and then you can integrate it with the database. Yeah. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Nishant, in order to avoid getting the resource group getting costed, can we resume it, or the only option is to delete it?
See, when we say resume it, I'll tell you very simple. It's a logical grouping of resources. The beauty of this is if you want to delete all the resources at one go, you can delete it. That is the benefit. Because, for example, there are 10 components that gets created, no? As a part of this.
Yeah.
Now what happens is if you forget to delete one component, there is a charge for it.
Correct.
But if you delete the resource group, you don't need to worry. Anything under that resource group will automatically get deleted. This is just to avoid your cost savings. However, you want individually, you can delete it. You can go ahead and delete each individual service. There is no problem.
Right. So basically, the resuming doesn't really make any impact on the charges. It will still get charged. I mean, if at all there is any
There's
option.
there is nothing like resource group resume or pause.
Okay.
It's a resource. Either you stop the resource or start the resource. If it is a VM, stop start. If it is a database, stop start. But you cannot disable an IP and enable an IP. Once allocated, you will be charged.
Okay. The only option is to delete it then if we are not using it. Then.
Yeah.
Hi Nishant, while I'm creating the database server, I couldn't see this network setting.
Okay, can you share your screen, Marimuthu?
Hello?
Yeah, can you share the screen once? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I'm able to hear you.
Yeah, can you share the screen, please? Okay, can you share Azure portal? Can you show me Azure portal?
Yeah, it's getting slow. For example, in basic, I have done.
No. You are creating different. You are creating SQL Server directly. Scroll down. Scroll down. SQL authentication. No, there should be production database and all. No, this is not the right option. I think what you need to do is cancel this, please. Yeah. No. See, search for SQL servers once again. Search for SQL databases, not servers. SQL databases. SQL databases. The keyword is very important. Here databases are separate. Yeah, now you click on create.
I have already created one database.
That's what you have never created. You have created a database server, not database.
No, before this, I have created a one SQL database.
Okay, go to your databases section and show me. Where is the database?
I think in resource.
You have created SQL Server. That's what I'm telling you, sir. There is a difference between SQL Server and SQL database in Azure.
Okay.
SQL Server means it will have hardware, RAM computing. SQL database doesn't have RAM computing. SQL database sits on top of SQL Server. Yeah, now you see this is the correct way. This is the correct way. Yeah, just select the Reva one. Good. Enter the DB name, DB1. Select the SQL server that you just created. See, it is not showing you the SQL server. Now click on create new. Now click on create new. Yes, now enter the SQL server name. Anything that you like.
Nishan, is there any specific session time for running this query this time?
So session time means how.
For example, if I run my query and then I'm idle for 1 minute, and then if I try to run another query again on the Explorer, then it's giving me an authentication.
Yeah, it will session time or 30 seconds, I think.
Oh, okay.
It's idle. Then you need to enter the login password again. And if you close it and open also, it will do that.
Oh.
Nishant, I'm getting an option to select the certificate.
Okay, 1 second. Let me. Okay, Marimutu is clear, no, for you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Who has the issue?
This Manjunath.
Yeah, Manjunath, you want to share the screen? Yeah, please.
So it's asking for the certificate when I try to log in.
No, cancel it.
Okay.
SQL database query, no?
Okay.
Yeah, here you see nothing to do with certificate, but did you add the security rule for your IP address?
No, right.
Yeah, can you do that?
Yeah.
Close this. There is a close. When I say close this, there is a button over there, X mark. Yeah, close that. Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. And then click on the DB1. Perfect. And then click on that set server firewall on the top in the breadcrumb. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, from here you can continue.
Okay.
Nishan, I'm not able to find the query editor. That
I
query
think
editor.
you are looking at a SQL server. You have to look at SQL database.
No, I'm the SQL database only.
Show me the screen.
Yeah. Let me just pull up my screen one sec. Okay. So this is what the database I have created. Here I'm just clicking
Click on the
this
SQL server.
DB1.
Perfect. Let's wait for
here,
it to. On your left side, see there's a query editor. Last
query,
option.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
Actually, I went to this firewalls and all. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. No. You did not go to firewall. You go into SQL server, not DB. There's a difference between DB and SQL server, no?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what. Okay. Cool.
Yes. Sure.
Nishan, post completing the lab, shall we delete the resources?
Yes, correct. Hey guys, welcome back. So I assume that everyone have completed this lab, and I see a couple of participants also have completed the next lab. That's absolutely fine. I'm going to continue for everyone's sake. I'll continue the database security lab. If you have already completed the next lab also, that's absolutely fine. You can complete all the labs and there's no issue. Yeah. In the next lab that I'm going to show you now, we will work on Azure Database Security. Again, in this case, whatever we have done in the SQL database case, here we have an automation script. Let me first show you the automation script and let the automation script run, and then I'll teach you what is happening in it, because automation script will take time. So open the script, save as on your downloads page as a JSON file, Azure deploy.json file. And then let me start the lab very freshly in this. So choose same custom deployment. Deploy custom template. For the next lab, first let's deploy, then we will think of it. Yeah, build your own template, load the file. I just downloaded the file from the documentation. Click on save. Create a new resource group. And East US. Rewind create. And create. Whatever you have done manually, whatever you have manually done in this place, SQL database, right? Whatever you have done manually, that is automated in the form of a JSON file. That's automated in the form of a JSON file. This is called as ARM template. You can create ARM templates or configuration files and then do the same job. OK. This task one, whatever you have done the previous lab is task one automated. That's it. Now in the task two is what is going to be different from the previous lab. In the task two, what we are going to do is we are going to enable Azure Defender for SQL. We are going to enable Azure Defender for SQL. The moment you enable Azure Defender for SQL, automatically an agent will get installed on the database server. Automatically, an agent will get installed on the database server. Not on the database, on the database server. And then you will also enable auditing on the database server. However, you will enable data discovery and classification on the database. On the database, you will enable data discovery and classification. On the server, you will enable Defender for SQL and auditing capabilities on the server. You know the difference, right? There is a difference between server and database, which you have learned from the previous class. That is SQL database security. Any questions on this lab?
One question, sir.
Yeah.
So we are creating DB server as a part of this process, right? Like,
correct.
I mean, we are not creating any VNet also, and it's not creating any VNet. So is it like?
It's a VM. It's a VM created behind it, but it is not shown to us.
So is there any virtual network by default created in our account?
Virtual
network for deploying this?
Yes. A virtual network gets deployed in the background, which is never known to you, which is never shown to you. Because it's a pass, no? It's a pass. In a platform as a service, you will never get control of the background. If you want, you can modify it. Yeah. If you go to the SaaS, for example, in Gmail, will you get a chance to look at the network of the Gmail server? No. So based on the type of service you choose, the automation, the components will change. how much access you will get will change based on the type of service you choose.
Okay, sir. Yeah, understood.
I'll also show you where to look for all of that components now in this lab. That was an easy lab to start with. OK, you see here, if you go to my resource groups, how many resources I should see? Two resources. One is called as database. The other one is called as server. You see the type SQL Server and SQL Database. Now, if I go to SQL Server, I'm not doing any configuration, but I'm showing you SQL Server. If you go to SQL Server, you go to the networking section. Now, this is where the manipulation will happen. To whom you will allow, to whom you don't allow. Yeah, but if you go to the SQL databases, you see in the SQL Server, you have a SQL databases and you see the database that is shown. So you can assume that this is a SQL Server. And inside that there is a database. So your query editor will directly interact with the database. Your query editor will directly interact with the database. OK, now let us go ahead and do the task number 2. That is enable the SQL Defender for SQL Defender, Azure SQL Defender. OK, now first thing that I should do is to go to my SQL Server. This is my SQL Server. In my resource group, I look at the SQL Server. This is the SQL Server, the first one. And if you go to the left side, you see Microsoft Defender for Cloud. You just go ahead and say enable Defender for Cloud, but look at it. You are invited to a 30-day trial free of charge. After the trial ends, you will be charged $15 per server per month. If you forget to delete because you have never added your credit cards, you will not be charged. Why you did not add credit cards? Because you are using Azure for Students. But once the Azure for Students accounts gets expired after 1 year, you will be charged. It will ask you to enter the payment. Without entering the credit card information, it will never allow after 1 year you to do all these activities. You need to definitely enter, or someone should give you that $100 voucher. OK, that's why be always cautious so that you delete. When you delete the services, automatically things will turn off. OK, enable Microsoft Defender for SQL. Don't worry, as long as you are following my instructions, you will not be charged a single rupee as long as you follow the instructions. That's enough. When I say single rupee, everything will be deducted from that $100. If you are a little advanced user, I'm sure you already know how to control all this amount. OK, now this will take 2 to 3 minutes for it to happen. Meanwhile, I'll show you. See, transparent data encryption encrypts your databases, backups and logs at rest without any changes to your application. You remember I said you application no need to know anything about the keys. Yeah, service managed key. But if you go ahead and change it to customer managed key, that means as a customer, you need to take the responsibility of encrypting, decrypting. When I say encrypting, decrypting, you need a key. Customer needs a key to enable and disable. OK, so if I go back to the Microsoft Defender for Cloud, you see at this moment, Microsoft Defender for SQL is enabled at the subscription level. Please look at it. It is enabled at a subscription level. If you want to disable this, you have to disable at a subscription level, not at a database level. Now, Nishant, why is it not clear? Actually, it is clear. Only thing is we need to see. We need to look at what it is actually telling to us. That's why when you do some configuration, clicking 3 buttons is not important. When you do some configuration, observe what is there in each of the screen. Observe what is this, what is this, what is this, what is this. Your observation skills should look at everything that is there on the screen. If you say, OK, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're done with the job, yes, you're done with the job. But the problem is there are so many components in the cloud, and if you don't keep track of them, it will be a challenge later. See, click on the configure. I'll show you. See, Microsoft Defender for Cloud is on, and vulnerability assessment setting is enabled. See, on MSDN, on the entire MSDN subscription. So anything under MSDN, the vulnerability assessment will be enabled. Now, periodic running the scans. Yes, after running the scans, when do you want to send the report? To which email address? Clear? And advanced threat protection settings. Advanced threat protection for SQL alerts. Emails are sent by Defender for Cloud. Do you want to add contact details? First of all, you enable auditing for better threats and investigation experience. I hope it is clear. Don't do any changes. Yeah, view all the recommendations for the database server. At this moment, it is giving me one recommendation. For example, enable multi-factor authentication. In my case, multi-factor authentication is enabled, so it's showing me in green color. There is some unhealthy. For example, email notification to the subscription. Is it enabled? Yes. You see, there is one thing that I did not follow. There should be more than one owner assigned to a subscription. Why there should be more than one owner? What happens if that owner dies? Or what happens if the owner absconds from your organization without revealing the credentials? What happens if the owner has set some explicit permissions, which is never known to you? So having two owners will help you to override the other owner's permissions. It's a best practice, right? That's why in banks, what do? You will do rotation. What is meant by rotation? You will ensure that people don't. There is no dependency on one person. Yeah, some suggestions from them. If you want to take it, no problem. If you want to ignore also, no worries. Access permissions. See, current score is 10. Typically, maximum score is 10 and it will auto give. All these are configurable. All these parameters are configurable in the Azure Defender. Now, let's go to the next task. If I go to my, sir, yeah.
We did this lab and we didn't see those recommendations. So
we did not enable in the previous lab, no? We are enabling it now. In this lab, we are enabling it. You got me? In the previous lab, we did not enable it.
Yeah.
Hope you remember, right? I'll show you.
Yes, sir. Yes. Okay.
See?
I'm talking about this lab only, but like in my when I have tried
it will take time. It will take time.
Okay.
Yeah. So whose is that? Whose mission is that? It's not showing. Venkateshwar. Wait. Let the in some time it will show you. No worries, huh? It will take time. Now, the first is Microsoft Defender for Cloud, which we have to understand. Most important factor is data classification that I am going to apply on. OK, data classification. Where should I apply? On the server or on the database? On the database. So if I click on Azure AZ500 LabDB, if you scroll down, if you go to security, you see data classification and discovery. When you select this data classification and discovery, it will see at this moment, did we do any classification? No, we did not do any classification. But I will go to the classification section and you click on add classification. See, it is going to show you schema. It is going to show you in that schema, in that database schema, how many tables are there, which table, which column. And what is that information type? It is networking information, contact information, credential information, credit card information, banking, financial, name, national ID, social security number, health information, or date of birth. Yeah, you can select. For example, first name. First name is a contact information. Sensitivity. Is it public information, general information, confidential information, confidential GDPR specific, highly confidential, and highly confidential GDPR specific. Now you can go ahead and add all these classifications to all the tables in your system. Clear? So you can go to add classification and select it here. Any questions? Apart from this, you see there is a heading here. Currently, using SQL information protection policy, we have found 15 columns with classification recommendations. That means Azure has automatically scanned. Azure has automatically scanned the data that you have inserted, and we have found 15 columns with classification recommendations. So click on the recommendations and you will see the recommendations here. It is based on the intelligence of Azure. However, Azure may also be sometimes dummy. You can go ahead and modify the confidentiality. For example, I want to take this email address and I accept the selected recommendation. And if you want, you can modify it. Email address is contact info. It's not confidential. It is public as per me. As per my company, it is public. OK, no problem. Click on save. You classified it as public. So in the overview, it will tell you label distribution, how many number of columns, how many number of labels that are distributed. Now this will help you to get data classification on your databases, which will help you in data privacy implementation.
Nishant, is this a separately charged service?
No, it's a part. It's a part of the database. Data classification and discovery is free.
Okay, because this can be done by just adding one column for the database wherein we can specify this aspect, right? Whether it is.
Yeah, for each column you can specify like this. So if you have 100 columns, you can give 100 columns sensitivity, but this is free because it's a part of the service.
Okay.
No.
So can we later on import this? Let us say if I'm exporting this particular data to some third party vendor who's doing so. Can I export along with the privacy flag, the classification flag, whether it is confidential or not?
Like this, you can export it. Classified columns and the recommendations.
Oh, so we can export the database full of it.
Yeah. Now I have exported. No, this is an Excel sheet. Same thing in an Excel sheet.
Okay. Okay.
Same thing. What we have seen there in the form of an Excel. You click this export button over there. Yeah, it will show you.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
You can do a lot of configuration. Huh? You can create your own labels. Huh? You can create your own labels. You can create your own information types. A lot of things can be done. Built-in is available as well as custom. Custom things can be imported. See, custom information protection policy from a file. You can import it or you can export it. The policy also. But the only problem is when you import and export, you have to write the policy in JSON format. So you should get comfortable with writing things in JSON. No, Nishant, I'm not comfortable in writing JSON policies like this. OK, no problem. You can leverage the UI also. See, everything is in JSON. The same policy that you are seeing here is exported. The one which you see here, whatever we have done till, that is exported in the form of a JSON. Yeah, clear? Now, the other important part is auditing. So at this moment, see here, server level auditing and Azure SQL level auditing. There is a difference. Server level auditing will be different from SQL level auditing. You see, Azure SQL auditing tracks database events and writes them to an audit log in your Azure storage account, log analytics workspace or event hub. We are going to enable both. That's OK. Enable SQL auditing. And where do you want to store your SQL auditing? I want to store all the data in a storage account. What is a storage account? Storage account is like a Google Drive where you can store all your logs. So do you have a storage account? See, automatically one storage account will get created. You can select the storage account, or if you want to create your own, that's fine. As per my lab guide, I have asked you to create a new storage account. See, general purpose storage account, standard performance, minimum TLS version is this. So every storage account comes with certain configuration. So storage account is like a Google Drive. So all the data of this, so let it complete. I'll show you. So all the logs of these audit logs will come and sit in this storage account. It's very similar to asking all your Gmail events to sit in Google Drive. Yeah, clear? So it's configuring the storage account and we need to wait for the storage account creation to complete. Yeah, now we have enabled the storage account. At this moment, can I see the storage account here? No. What I will do, I'll just discard it. I'll come back again. I'll enable again storage account. Oh, I don't see the storage account in the subscription. That means the storage account is created or not. It's created. I want to see. See if it doesn't reflect. If it doesn't reflect, there is no issue. Discard it, reload the page and come back and assign it. Discard, reload the page, come back and assign it. Auditing, SQL auditing, storage, MCT. See, now the dummy storage account and just say how many days you want to keep the logs here or how many days you want to keep the logs. 5 days. After the 5 days, it will rotate the log. Click on save. Now we are not accessing anything on the database. We are not accessing anything on the database. If you go to the audit logs, you will not see anything here. There is no audit logs. There is no server audit logs. Nothing, because we did not do any action on your database. Now, if you want to see, go to the preview section. Do you all know what was the password? If you don't know what was the password, you know where to get it. You all know where to get it, no?
In the ARM template.
In the template. So where is the password? See, this is the password from the template. You can ask me, Nishant, why are you making complex things? Why are you giving some automation scripts which you don't understand? Trust me, the moment you start cloud, everyone will say, hey, learn cloud from UI point of view. The moment you get 2 years experience or the moment you go to senior position, people will say, can you write an automation script for me to create something? No one will ask you to click like kind of it. No one likes it. Yeah. So now you can go ahead and run any query. I'm just modifying some data. I'm just changing randomly some data, okay, to show you demo. and save the database. I'll delete something. Yeah, sales address. Okay, now I have deleted a couple of things. I have stored some of them. Yeah, I'll close this. Save it. Save it. Okay. Now go back to the auditing. Okay. If I go back to audit logs, see whatever happened in my database, everything is there. Batch action completed, database authentication succeeded, batch completed. Now what is that batch action? You can go ahead and see what was the query, who did it, what was the principal name. Principal name is SQL admin has done this job, and this is the information. Now this is what you need when you want to audit who has done what job. Clear? How to do database auditing?
You are doing this from the storage account?
Why storage account? I am just doing it from this one, no editor, which we have done. All the data is stored in a storage account.
So how have you accessed these audit logs?
You want to directly go to the logs? Okay, go to the storage account itself. If you go to the storage account, go to the file shares. It did not store it here. See SQL audit logs. If you go here, you will get all the raw logs for your database. See, this is the raw log of the database. If you download the raw log of the database, you'll not be open this file because we don't have the software to open it. You will try with Excel. I'll try to load it with Excel. 1 second. Here is the download showing folder. See, this is how it comes. If you try to open it, raw log. These are the raw logs. So rather than opening from here, what you can do, directly go to the auditing and then click on view audit logs. It will actually filter it from there. Now what you want is, if you don't want to see it here, if you want to push everything to an SIEM, you can do that. Come here. Go ahead and say log analytics. Log analytics is the SIEM of Azure. Basic version of SIEM. You can select it and you can select the SIEM. Directly it will go to that SIEM tool. Or if you want, you can select the Event Hub. Event Hub is like a manager who can actually distribute this to another servers. For example, via Event Hub, you can send it to AWS, you can send it to Google, or you can send it to Splunk. Up to you.
So does it use any standard logging format, syslog format?
No, there is nothing like standard syslog format. Each device behaves and each log will be in different format. For example, today, no, that's what. So today, Palo Alto and Juniper, do you think they will actually put the logs in the same format? They generate the log in the same format? No. No device in this world will generate the logs in the same format. Except all Unix machines will be generating in one format. All Windows machines will generate in one format. But coming to Juniper, Cisco, Palo Alto, they don't. Now it is our responsibility to normalize them using the rules. That is what SIEM's responsibility is, no? What is SIEM's responsibility? Is to take all the logs from different sources, normalize it, correlate it, and then apply different types of threat intelligence and show us where the threats are happening. Correct? That's what is the behavior. That is the main reason you're using SIM.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on this? Now, whatever you have done, no, you have done it on a pass. Now, what happens if you have to create a server? On top of that, you have to install the operating system. You have to install the MySQL database. Then who will take all the responsibility? Who will take all the responsibility? Configuring an SIEM tool, configuring the audit logging, configuring everything. Everything should be done differently. Apart from what you have seen, everything is a regular data center world. That's everything is a regular data center world. Like a regular data center, whatever you do the same operations here. Any specific questions? Any questions?
No, Sean.
Good. That's it for this lab. You can just go once you're done with that lab, you can just go delete this resource group. OK. Yeah, please go ahead and continue. 1 minute. 1 second. Yeah, it's around 1:07. Try to complete this lab by around 1:30 or 1:40 maximum. Take a break. Come back by 2:30. Maximum by 2:30. I'm expecting everyone to be back after completing this lab. OK, it's actually easy lab. Because I'm explaining it took time. Yeah, George, you're telling something.
No, I said we'll finish it by then.
OK, yeah. In case if you would like to finish the other ones also, George, no worries.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, Venkateshwara.
I still couldn't see those recommendations that you
OK, let's go ahead and look at your screen. I'll stop sharing and you can start sharing. Other people can continue. I'll try to meet you at 2:30, everyone. Yeah, let's go ahead and close this. Yeah, first thing, where are you? You are currently on the database. Where are you supposed to be? You should be supposed to be on the server. Yeah, click the first one, sir. First one. Yeah. Good. On your left side, you see Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. See, it is not enabled, no, sir. You remember I was telling you, you are looking at a wrong one. You are looking at database server, not you have to look at a underlying server, not DB. Now you have to enable. Yeah, once upgraded. Yes, now it is upgraded. Now if you go back there, you will be able to see it. At this moment. Yeah, wait. Now only you have enabled. No, it will take time for the logs to come. Now close it, close this, go to your database. Close this and go to your database. When I say database, database server. Yeah, what I mean is database server. Click on the database, DB security. Yeah, go to the database server, the first one, SQL Server. Yeah, now on the left side, click on Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Now give a minute. Now at this moment, if you see, if you go to install agents, if you go to install agents. Yeah, now see, install all the agents. Yeah, do that. Now, did you follow the lab guide?
Yes, sir.
But if you follow the lab guide, there is an instruction to install the agent, no? Okay, I'll tell you. Task number 2, point number 4. Task number 2, point number 4. On the SQL Server blade, in the security section, Microsoft Defender, scroll to the bottom of the Getting Started page and select Upgrade on the Install Agents tab. Select Agents. Select Install Agents. Yeah. Can you go there? Getting Started page. In the Getting Started page, Install Agents. Install Agents. Yeah. In the bottom, select Install Agents. Did you select Install Agents before?
Yeah.
Yeah, it will take time. If you have selected Install Agents, it will take 10 minutes, something like that time. Yeah. Agents installation initiated, not completed. So it will take on an average 10 minutes, and then by that time you will be done.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, fine.